two types of news information today. The first one is the NBA plans to reopen team practice facilities Friday, where local governments have relaxed stay-at-home restrictions. It will give players the ability to work out at their training facility. However, they will have to do it individually and not as a team. I'm going to tell you about how they need to execute that properly, and hopefully this will be a sign, a very beginning stage of things trying to trend back to normal. Jameis Winston signs with the New Orleans Saints. I heard those benches in New Orleans are a lot more comfortable than the ones in Tampa Bay, because he's going from Tampa Bay to New Orleans and he is not going to start, but it gives the Saints a decent backup to have pending that Drew Brees were to get hurt again. These are two important articles. I'm going to break them down, give you my opinion and everything in between. Stay right here. The NBA is planning to reopen team practice facilities. Now, when I first saw this, I completely jumped the gun, which I shouldn't have done, but I completely jumped the gun and I said, oh my God, everyone's going to be working out together. This thing's going to blow up again. I did my research information. It's only going to be in select locations. And the saddest part is that if there's anybody that needs practice, it's the New York Knicks. But it's not going to be the New York Knicks getting practice, because New York is the hardest hit place in the United States for the coronavirus. So it is not going to be New York, and it is not going to be New Jersey. There's not a basketball team in New Jersey anyway. It's going to be in areas where they have relaxed stay-at-home restrictions. And I think that that's a good start for them. Again, you can't just say every team can open their training facility and go haywire just because the numbers are starting to curve and drop off slightly. It is still spreading. It has not stopped spreading, but the rate of spread in certain areas has dropped semi-dramatically and has gotten to a point where it is in terms improving to an extent. That's not 100% true, to an extent. Okay. Georgia, for example, says right here, where Governor Brian Kemp began restarting the economy last week, was specifically cited by one of many team executives who are reportedly interested in getting players back into training. The Atlanta Hawks, I'm sure, are going to be one of these teams, perhaps, that are going to have this type of privilege. And it says here, if the players can travel and play at a 24-hour fitness in Atlanta, they should be able to have access to our facilities, which is true. The problem is not them having access to the facilities. The problem is them staying away from each other, because there's no way you're going to get a whole entire basketball team into a facility and have them stay away from each other. Everybody wants to see their teammates. Everybody wants to work out together. So that's a problem. But it states under here that players will be allowed to voluntarily work out individually, but not as a team. So that does help in terms of them being able to work out. But the problem is that it's not team-oriented. And it can't be right now because of the whole entire situation. And that's good and bad. Good because it gives them a chance to access facilities. Half of these players have an entire gym in their damn house mansion, okay? So I can't really sit here and say, you know, oh, but again, the facilities are specifically designed for an entire team. I don't think they have a whole training facility, but I guarantee you that 90 to 95% of these players that are on this Hawks team or any team has some kind of gym, massive gym-like facility in their mansion, okay? So I don't think the problem for them is working out. The problem for a lot of people, normal people, is that they don't have the equipment. They don't have the money to get the equipment. Again, but you can always work out without equipment, okay? Because anybody that gives you that excuse that you need equipment to work out is full of it. So the thing is, again, this has to be very easy. Now, I'm curious to see how they go about this. It's them planning to find an alternative training arrangement for players in states where stay-at-home orders remain fully intact. That's another thing right here. The NBA also plans to find alternative training arrangements for players in states where stay-at-home orders remain fully intact. That means the New York Knicks. That means the LA Lakers, the LA Clippers. All of those teams that are in highly populated areas are now going to have to find some alternative. There's no way in hell the New York Knicks are going to open anything. And that's the first team that comes to mind because of New York, and the Knicks damn sure need practice, okay? So that is one of those things that has to be thought about clearly. And now my question is that let's say they start this, right? They start this whole entire process. It goes well. The virus continues to slow. The rate of spread continues to slow. And all of these things start to work right. At what point do you say, now we're going to have the players have the ability to interact with one another? The first step would be getting everyone's facility open. But again, this is just a start. If the virus completely does a 360 and continues to get 10 times worse, they're probably going to shut this idea down. But again, we don't know. There may be a list on here somewhere of what teams are going to use this format, what teams are going to basically say we are not in a highly populated area and we're going to give access to our training facility because we're not in a populated area. So we don't need to have complete access to or we need to, we don't have to close down everything to our training facility. That's one of the things that it has to be a whole careful process. I think the idea that it's individually based workouts is very, very important. It cannot be team workouts. Has to be individual. Has to be individual, and it has to stay that way for now. So this is one of those things where you're going to want to pay attention to it in the next couple of weeks, because it seems that the NBA is finally starting to take some kind of approach to pretending to trying to get to that status and trying to get things better. They're the first team to do this. The MLB had the idea that they wanted to do no fans in Arizona and Tampa. I think that would have been awful, and I think that kind of fell through. The MLB wanted to do something like that. We haven't really heard much from the NHL as far as I know. The NFL, nothing either. Again, the NFL is ways away, but again, July, August, when training camps start, we're going to have to see where this is. Again, we're at the end of April. April's gone. May is probably shot. But again, June is when I think maybe they can start to turn the trend and maybe start to get the league going back. But again, it all depends how it goes. If people don't stay home and they don't take this serious, this is just going to keep going on. To the people that are staying home, keep doing what you're doing. You do have an impact on this whole entire thing, because all it takes is one person to make a difference. So we're going to see what happens here. NBA opening their facilities. I will provide you with more news when I have it about which facilities are opening, which teams. I would assume that the Hawks is one of them, because they specifically mentioned in this article, Georgia is, the Georgia mayor has relaxed started to open up the economy again. And that's one of the teams that is kind of just going with that. So we're going to see here, but they have to be very careful in the way they do this, and I'm sure that they are very well aware of that. Jameis Winston is on the move. Jameis Winston is a free agent. At the end of this last season, Jameis Winston became a free agent. We didn't even know. I had a feeling, regardless of what happened with Tom Brady coming to Tampa Bay, I didn't think that Jameis Winston was actually going to come back, regardless of what happened. We were told, I don't know exactly what the offer that Tampa Bay gave Jameis Winston, but it turns out it's all but confirmed that Jameis Winston is going to be signing with the New Orleans Saints, according to almost every news outlet. And one of the things I want to make adding to here is that when you look at this at first, you say, why is Jameis Winston going to the Saints? That's an awful idea. But from a Saints standpoint, from a New Orleans standpoint, it does make a lot of sense. Because if you look at it this way, the Saints are loading up. Drew Brees signed a contract right before this year started, 2 years, $50 million. We're almost all but positive that this is going to be Drew Brees' very last contract. We don't see him signing again. I would put almost everything that I love on the line to say that Drew Brees will never play for another team. That's a fact. Drew Brees will retire a Saint, and it's going to happen at the end of next year. Not this year, but the one after that. Does he get a Super Bowl before that ends? I don't think Jameis Winston's going to affect that, to be honest with you. I don't think Jameis Winston coming to the Saints is really going to make any type of difference. The only thing that's going to matter is when they get hurt. If Drew Brees gets hurt. The Saints are already loaded with quarterbacks. They have Drew Brees. They lost Teddy Bridgewater, right? So then they have Taysom Hill still there. He's a dual threat. He can play a lot of positions. They like him. But I think they wanted a more established quarterback. Now, Jameis Winston is nowhere near a great quarterback, but he does have the quarterback experience. And I think that the Saints would pull the trigger and rely towards Jameis Winston in the event that Drew Brees would get hurt at some point during this season or next season. He will most certainly be a backup. But again, the deal is not all but signed. And that's what it is. Jameis Winston signs with the Saints, and it gives them an idea to have backup protection for Drew Brees in the event that Drew Brees would get hurt. He will definitely, 100%, Jameis Winston will be a backup for the New Orleans Saints. There's no question about that. So I think that he's in a situation, Jameis Winston, where he kind of wants to win a ring. But at the same time, I'm almost kind of wondering why he left Tampa. Maybe he just really didn't like it there. He felt that the energy wasn't right, and he left. he did go to another great team. So it's not like Jameis Winston went to a worse or a better team. I personally think the Saints are better than the Buccaneers. And it's very interesting because now the Buccaneers have a situation now where what if Tom Brady gets hurt? Tom Brady doesn't really get hurt. He's been very fortunate to have a pretty healthy career. What if Tom Brady gets hurt? Then the Buccaneers are screwed. They have no quarterback. So I'm interested to see how the Buccaneers play with it. The Saints as well. I mean, it's interesting for Jameis Winston. He's going to get a chance to learn. Is Jameis Winston ever going to be in a starting role on another team? I'm not sure. And is Jameis Winston going to take over for Drew Brees when he's done? Probably not, because I don't think Jameis Winston is going to be on the Saints when Drew Brees retires. I don't see that happening because I think that this is just a temporary placement. I think personally Jameis Winston wants to stay on the Saints, but I don't think the Saints are going to keep him because I feel like when they give him that chance that he's going to just rot. And I hate to say it, but Jameis Winston is just a very, I don't want to say unintelligent quarterback, but he makes a lot of dumb mistakes. And I feel like he doesn't have the quarterback IQ that is required of a starting quarterback. And that's just how I feel. That doesn't make it right. But again, I think Teddy Bridgewater was a perfect guy that fit the Saints mold, but he knew he was worth more. And we definitely knew Teddy Bridgewater was worth a lot more than when he was on the Saints. But he did a great job on the Saints. Taysom Hill is that dual threat. So now the Saints are looking at Drew Brees, speaks for himself, Jameis Winston, and Taysom Hill as a dual threat. You don't know what you're going to get from him. So I think it was a smart move for the Saints, honestly. Again, we don't know what they paid him. Hopefully they didn't overpay him. But it gives the Saints a little bit of more depth on the quarterback chart and a chance to put different quarterbacks in different situations. I don't think it was one that was necessary. But again, I don't think it's as awful as people think. I'm interested to see how it plays out because I don't know what Jameis Winston's role. We know he's going to be a backup quarterback on the Saints, but we don't know exactly, is he going to play? He's so used to being a starter. He seems okay with this. But at the same time, he left Tampa Bay and Tom Brady was there. So if Jameis Winston was in a situation to where he wanted to start at some point again in his career, I don't know why he would have left because you couldn't think of anybody better to learn from than Tom Brady. So that was pretty interesting. And I really, it's an interesting situation. I really don't know. But that's just kind of the news I got here today, guys. Jameis Winston signing with the Saints and the NBA reopening facilities, which they need to do in a smart manner. I appreciate everybody watching as always. Stay safe.